The Galactic Dominion had ruled the stars for 11 million years. 1,000 different species lived under its control. Some had joined by choice. Most had not. The Dominion believed in one simple truth: the strong ruled and the weak served. This was the natural order of things, and they had proven it across 10,000 conquered worlds. High Admiral Voroth stood on the bridge of his massive warship, the Eternal Conquest. He was a tall creature with gray skin and forearms. His species, the Vorn, had helped build the Dominion long ago. They were proud warriors who had never known defeat. Voroth himself had led 37 planetary harvests. He knew his job well. "Show me the target," he commanded. A holographic image appeared before him. A small blue planet with white clouds and green lands. It circled a yellow star in a quiet corner of the galaxy. The planet was called Earth by its people. 7 billion life forms, his science officer reported. They call themselves humans. They have basic space travel. They reached their moon about 50 years ago. They have nuclear weapons, but nothing that could threaten our shields. Voroth made a sound that was his species' version of laughter. 50 years to reach their own moon? These creatures are barely out of their caves. Their planet is rich in resources. Another officer added, water, metals, organic material. The bioforges could process their population in 3 standard cycles. Their bodies will fuel our war machines for decades. This was how the Dominion worked. Weak species were harvested. Their bodies were broken down and used to create fuel, medicine, and food for the Empire. It was efficient. It was practical. The Dominion did not believe in waste. "How many ships do we have?" Voroth asked. 12,000 warships, Admiral." "More than enough," Voroth nodded. It was indeed more than enough. He had conquered species with 10 times this force and still had ships left over. But the Dominion liked to be thorough. They liked to send a message to any other species who might be watching. Resistance was pointless. The fleet moved toward Earth. 12,000 vessels of death and destruction, each one carrying enough firepower to burn a continent. They passed the outer planets of the solar system, Jupiter, Saturn. Their sensors detected primitive human machines floating in space, simple robots that sent signals back to Earth. The humans were watching them come. "They are trying to communicate," the communications officer said. "Radio signals. Very basic. What are they saying?" "They are asking who we are. They are asking what we want. Some signals appear to be prayers." Voroth felt a small moment of pity. It passed quickly. "Send them the standard message." The communications officer obeyed. Across all frequencies, in patterns that any intelligent species could understand. The Dominion broadcast its verdict: "Your world has been selected for harvest. Do not resist. Resistance will only increase your suffering. Your species will end. This is the will of the Dominion." The response from Earth was immediate. Chaos filled the radio waves. Governments screamed at each other. Military forces mobilized uselessly. Some humans begged for mercy. Others cursed and threatened. A few broadcast music and art, as if hoping to prove their species had value. Voroth watched it all with cold eyes. He had seen this before. Every species reacted the same way when death came for them. First denial, then anger, then bargaining, then despair. The humans were following the pattern perfectly. "Continue our approach," he ordered. "Begin charging the orbital bombardment systems. We will burn their military centers first, then their population centers. Standard harvest protocol." His crew obeyed without question. They had done this many times before. To them, this was just another job. But as the fleet crossed the orbit of Saturn, something strange happened. "Admiral," the sensor officer said, his voice suddenly uncertain. "I am detecting an unusual reading." "What kind of reading?" "Energy signature. Coming from the target planet." The officer's hands moved quickly over his controls. "This is very strange. The signature is coming from deep underground. Very deep. Almost at the planet's core." Voroth frowned. "Natural geological activity?" "No, Admiral. The pattern is too regular. It appears to be artificial." "Artificial? These primitives can barely reach their moon. How could they build anything at their planet's core?" "I do not know, Admiral. But the energy levels are rising. It looks like something is waking up." A cold feeling touched Voroth's heart. He had not felt fear in a very long time. He had almost forgotten what it was. But something about those words made ancient instincts stir in his blood. Something is waking up. Put it on screen, he commanded. The holographic display changed. It showed Earth from space. At first, everything looked normal. Blue oceans, white clouds, green lands. But then Voroth saw it. A pulse of golden light, deep beneath the planet's surface. It was faint at first, barely visible. Then it pulsed again, stronger. And again. And again. It looked like a heartbeat. "Admiral," the sensor officer whispered, "the energy reading is now higher than anything in our records. Higher than our largest power stations. Higher than our sun killers. This is impossible." Voroth stared at the screen. 12,000 warships hung behind him. The mightiest fleet in the galaxy. He had never known defeat. He had never retreated from battle. But as he watched that golden pulse grow stronger and stronger, as he felt something ancient and terrible rise from its long sleep, Admiral Voroth realized that he had made a terrible mistake. The humans were not alone. They had never been alone, and whatever protected them was now awake. On Earth, people looked up at the sky and waited for death. They held their loved ones close. They said their final prayers. They did not know that deep beneath their feet, in a chamber that had been sealed since before the dinosaurs walked, eyes that had been closed for 65 million years were finally opening. The forgotten guardian was waking. And the galaxy would never be the same. Dr. Elena Vasquez had spent her whole life studying earthquakes. She worked at a small research station in Antarctica, surrounded by ice and silence. It was lonely work, but she loved it. The Earth spoke to her through her instruments, telling stories of pressure and movement deep below the surface. But on this day, the Earth was screaming. Every machine in her station had gone crazy at the same moment. Needles jumped off their scales. Screens filled with impossible numbers. Elena ran from device to device, trying to understand what was happening. It was not an earthquake. It was something else entirely. "This cannot be real," she whispered. The readings showed something pulsing deep beneath the ground. Not in one place, but directly below her station. The pulse was coming from 800 kilometers down, far deeper than any natural cave or chamber could exist. At that depth, the pressure and heat should crush and melt anything. But something was there. Something was alive. Elena tried to call her colleagues around the world. The phone lines were chaos. Everyone was reporting the same thing. Every seismic station on Earth was detecting the same impossible signal. The pulse was growing stronger, and it was synchronized, like a heartbeat, like something waking from a very long sleep. She managed to reach Dr. James Chen in California. He was the only person she knew who might understand what was happening. "James, are you seeing this?" "Elena, I have been doing this for 30 years. I have never seen anything like this. The signal is artificial. There is no doubt. Something built this, and it is bigger than anything humanity has ever created. But that is impossible. We did not build anything down there. We cannot build anything down there, I know." "Which means," James paused. His voice was shaking. "Which means someone else did." A very long time ago, Elena felt the world shift beneath her feet. Not physically, but in her understanding. Everything she thought she knew about Earth, about history, about humanity's place in the universe, was suddenly uncertain. "The aliens," she said. "Everyone is talking about the alien fleet. Do you think this is connected? It has to be. The timing cannot be coincidence. Whatever is down there, it knows they are coming. It is responding." Elena looked out her window at the endless white ice. Somewhere beneath that frozen ground, beneath hundreds of kilometers of rock and heat and pressure, something ancient was stirring. Something that had been waiting. Over the next several hours, Elena and James worked with scientists around the world. They shared data. They compared readings. They tried to map the shape of whatever was buried beneath the Earth. What they found was terrifying and wonderful. It was huge. Whatever was down there stretched across hundreds of kilometers. It was not natural stone or metal. The readings suggested something else, something that did not match any material in their databases. And it was moving. Slowly, carefully, it was rising toward the surface. The governments of the world demanded answers. Military leaders wanted to know if it was a threat. Religious leaders called it a sign from God. Ordinary people simply prayed that whatever was coming would save them from the alien fleet. Elena and her team dug through old records. They searched ancient texts and mythology. They looked for any mention of something buried beneath the earth. What they found sent chills down their spines. Every culture on Earth had stories about it. The Greeks called them titans, ancient beings of impossible power who ruled before the gods. The Norse spoke of giants who slept beneath the mountains. The Chinese told tales of dragons waiting in the deep places of the world. Native American legends described guardians who protected the land since the beginning of time. African stories spoke of the first watchers who came before humans existed. The details were different, but the core story was the same. Long ago, something powerful had protected humanity. Then it had gone to sleep, waiting for the day it would be needed again. They were not myths, Elena said softly. They were memories, passed down through thousands of generations. Memories of something real, far above Earth. Admiral Voroth was having similar revelations, but his were far less hopeful. His science officers had unlocked old files from the Dominion archives, files that had been sealed for millions of years, files that contained warnings from empires that no longer existed. Admiral, his chief scientist said, I have found records of previous expeditions to this solar system. 7 different civilizations tried to claim this planet over the past 12 million years. And what happened to them? The scientist's gray face had turned pale. They were all destroyed. Every fleet, every ship. There were no survivors. The records describe a being of immense power that rose from the planet and annihilated anything that threatened it. Voroth felt his heart beating faster. Why was this information sealed? The High Council deemed it unreliable. They believed the stories were exaggerated. They thought the failed expeditions had encountered natural disasters or internal conflicts. They did not believe a single being could destroy entire fleets. And now, the scientist looked at his readings. The energy signature from Earth was still growing. It was now larger than anything the Dominion had ever measured. Now I believe the records were accurate. Admiral, I recommend immediate retreat. Whatever is waking down there, we cannot fight it. Our weapons will be useless. Voroth stared at the blue planet on his screen. 12,000 warships awaited his command. The pride of the Dominion, the mightiest fleet in the galaxy. But pride meant nothing against something that had destroyed civilizations. Before the Dominion even existed, signal all ships, Voroth said slowly. Halt our advance. We will observe and wait. It was the first time in his career that Admiral Voroth had shown hesitation. It would not save him. On Earth, the ground had begun to shake. In Antarctica, great cracks appeared in the ice. Scientists and soldiers watched in amazement as something golden began to glow. Beneath the frozen surface, the Guardian was rising, and nothing in the galaxy could stop it. Elena Vasquez stood at the edge of a massive crack in the ice, looking down into the golden light below. She was terrified. She was amazed. She was witnessing the most important moment in human history. What are you? She whispered into the light, and deep below, something heard her. The ice exploded. Elena Vasquez was thrown backward by the force of it. She landed in the snow, her ears ringing, her eyes blinded by golden light. All around her, pieces of ice as big as houses flew through the air. The ground shook so hard that she could not stand. She could only lie there and watch as something impossible rose from the depths of the earth. It was enormous. That was the first thought her mind could form. It was so large that her brain struggled to understand what she was seeing. The being rose from the shattered ice like a god emerging from the underworld. Its body was made of something that looked like metal, but it glowed with inner light. Gold and silver and colors she had no names for danced across its surface. It had a shape similar to a human. 2 arms, 2 legs, a head with features that almost looked like a face. But it was 40 kilometers tall. Its feet crushed mountains. Its head touched the lower edges of space. When it opened its eyes, 2 points of golden fire burned like small suns. Elena watched it rise to its full height. She watched it turn its massive head toward the sky. She knew, without understanding how she knew, that it was looking at the alien fleet far above. All around the world, people saw it. Satellites captured images of the impossible giant standing on Earth. Television stations broadcast the footage. 7 billion humans watched in shock and wonder as the Guardian revealed itself. Some people screamed in terror. Some fell to their knees in prayer. Some simply stared, unable to speak or move. This was beyond anything humanity had ever imagined. This was a being from the time before time, a protector from an age when the stars themselves were young. The Guardian did not speak with sound. Its voice appeared directly in the minds of every thinking creature within 3 star systems. Humans on Earth heard it. Admiral Voroth and his crew heard it. Species on distant worlds, watching through telescopes and sensors, heard it. The voice was not loud. It was not angry. It was simply absolute, like the laws of physics, like gravity, like death. You were warned. Admiral Voroth stumbled backward from his command chair. The voice had bypassed all his mental defenses. It had spoken directly to his soul. 12 million years ago, your ancestors were warned. The empires that came before you were warned. Every species that has threatened this world has received the same message. And every species that ignored that message has been destroyed. The Guardian raised one massive hand toward the stars. Space itself seemed to bend around its fingers. Voroth watched his sensor readings go insane. The energy levels were impossible. They were beyond anything the Dominion could measure. They were beyond anything the Dominion could imagine. This world is under my protection. These people are under my protection. I was placed here before your ancestors learned to walk upright. I was old when your son was born. I have watched over this planet for longer than your species has existed, and I will continue watching over it long after your empire has turned to dust. On the bridge of the eternal conquest, chaos erupted. Officers screamed at each other. Some tried to activate weapons. Some tried to turn the ships around. Some simply sat frozen, unable to process what was happening. Admiral, his weapons officer shouted, "What are your orders?" Voroth could not answer. He was staring at the image on his screen. The Guardian had begun to move. It was walking across the Earth's surface, each step covering hundreds of kilometers. It was walking toward the sea, and the sea was parting before it like a servant making way for a king. Fire. Voroth finally whispered. Fire everything. It was a mistake born of fear and desperation. 12,000 ships launched their weapons at once. Missiles, energy beams, projectiles that could crack planets. Everything the Dominion had, thrown at the Guardian in one massive attack. The Guardian did not dodge. It did not hide. It simply stood there as the combined firepower of the mightiest fleet in the galaxy struck its body. The attacks did nothing. Energy beams splashed against its skin like water against stone. Missiles exploded harmlessly against its chest. Planet-cracking weapons that had destroyed worlds simply faded into the golden glow of its body. Absorbed like drops of rain into an ocean. The Guardian looked at the fleet. Elena, still lying in the snow thousands of kilometers away, felt its attention shift. Even from that distance, even through the connection that all humans suddenly shared with this ancient being, she felt its emotions. It was not angry. It was not cruel. It was simply disappointed, like a parent who had warned a child not to touch a hot stove, and now had to watch the child learn the hard way. You were given a chance to leave. The Guardian said. You chose to attack. Now you will understand why the old empires feared this place. Now you will understand why the ancient records warned you never to come here. The Guardian raised both hands toward the sky. Space around the Dominion fleet began to twist and tear. Ships that had traveled across galaxies found themselves unable to move. The most advanced technology in the known universe was suddenly useless. And then the Guardian began to walk toward them. It did not fly. It did not teleport. It simply walked, and with each step, it crossed millions of kilometers. It was breaking the laws of physics as casually as a human might step over a crack in the sidewalk. Admiral Voroth watched death approach. He had conquered 37 worlds. He had killed billions. He had never known fear. Now he understood it perfectly. All ships. He screamed into his communicator, retreat. Maximum speed. Get us out of here. But there was nowhere to run. The Guardian was already among them. On Earth, Elena Vasquez watched the sky. She could not see the battle, but she could feel it through the strange connection the Guardian had created. She felt the alien ships trying to escape. She felt the Guardian moving through them like a giant walking through grass. And she felt something else, something that surprised her. The Guardian was not killing them. It was destroying their ships, but it was protecting their lives. Escape pods were being released. Life support systems were being preserved. The Guardian was defeating the enemy with overwhelming power, but it was showing mercy. It was teaching them a lesson they would never forget. "What are you?" Elena whispered again, and this time, the Guardian answered, "I am the first warden. I was created to protect, created by beings who loved life so much that they built guardians to watch over it. Across the universe, your species is young, Elena Vasquez, but you have potential. You will grow, you will learn, and one day, you will take your place among the stars." Elena felt tears running down her face. She did not fully understand what was happening. She did not know who had created the Guardian or why, but she knew one thing with absolute certainty. Humanity was not alone. They had never been alone, and they were going to survive. The battle lasted 11 minutes. In those 11 minutes, the most powerful military force in the galaxy was completely destroyed. Admiral Voroth watched from his escape pod as the Eternal Conquest was torn apart. The Guardian moved through the fleet like a farmer walking through a field of wheat. Its hands reached out and ships simply came apart. Not exploded, not burned. They were disassembled, piece by piece. Their crews safely ejected in escape pods before the hulls separated. 12,000 warships. The pride of the Dominion. The force that had conquered 1,000 worlds. They became floating metal clouds in 11 minutes, but no one died. That was the part that broke Voroth's mind. The Guardian was not a monster. It was not a beast driven by rage or hunger for destruction. It was something far more terrifying. It was a protector that was so powerful, so completely beyond their ability to fight, that it did not even need to kill. It could defeat them utterly while still showing mercy. This was not a victory. This was a lesson. When it was finished, the Guardian floated among the wreckage. Thousands of escape pods drifted in space, filled with the surviving crews of the destroyed fleet. The Guardian looked at them, its golden eyes seeing each one, knowing each life it had spared. Then it spoke again, but this time, its voice reached further, much further, across the galaxy, on every inhabited world, every space station, every ship traveling between stars, being stopped what they were doing. The voice of the Guardian entered their minds with a message that could not be ignored. "I am the first warden. I speak now to all who can hear, on the Dominion homeworld." The High Council gathered in emergency session. On rebel worlds that had been fighting the Dominion for centuries, fighters paused in their battles. On neutral worlds that had always tried to stay hidden, leaders looked up in fear. Every thinking creature in the galaxy heard the ancient voice, 12 million years ago. "I gave a warning to the empires that ruled this galaxy. That warning was forgotten. Today, I give it again." The Guardian gestured, and somehow, every being in the galaxy saw what it showed them. They saw Earth, the small blue world with its 7 billion humans. They saw the fleet approaching. They saw the Guardian rise. They saw the battle that was not a battle. This world is called Earth. These beings are called humans. They are young. They make mistakes. They fight among themselves. They are imperfect, as all young species are imperfect, but they are mine to protect. They are mine to guide, and they will grow into something magnificent. Voroth, floating in his escape pod, felt the Guardian's attention focus on him for a moment. He felt his entire life examined and judged in that single instant. The 37 worlds he had harvested, the billions of lives he had ended. The Guardian saw it all, and it felt pity for him that hurt worse than any punishment could have. "The Dominion believes in strength," the Guardian continued. "You believe the strong should rule and the weak should serve. This is not wrong, but you have forgotten what true strength looks like. True strength is not the power to destroy. True strength is the power to protect. True strength is choosing mercy when you could choose death." The Guardian raised its hands, and the wreckage of the fleet began to move. The escape pods were pushed gently, carefully, toward a course that would take them back to Dominion space. It would be a long journey, but they would survive. "I am sending your fleet home. Every life that came here will return. Let them tell you what they saw. Let them tell you what happened when you threatened a world under my protection. And let this be the last time you need to learn this lesson." The golden eyes burned brighter. "Any who threaten humanity will answer to me. Any fleet, any empire, any power in this universe that tries to harm them will face what this fleet faced today. But I will not always show mercy. I will not always spare lives. This was your one warning. If you come again, you will not leave. This is not a threat. This is not a promise. This is simply the truth. Remember it." The Guardian's voice faded from the minds of the galaxy, but the memory of its words would never fade. For the first time in 11 million years, the Dominion had been defeated. For the first time ever, every species in the galaxy knew that there was something more powerful than the greatest empire. On Earth, people slowly came out of their shelters. They looked up at the sky and saw nothing but stars. The battle was over. The fleet was gone. They had been saved by something they did not understand, something that had watched over them since before humans existed. Elena Vasquez stood on the broken ice of Antarctica, watching the Guardian descend from space. It walked across the ocean, the water not even reaching its ankles. It moved toward the Pacific, toward a place far from any human city, far from any land. And then it knelt. It lowered its massive body into the sea. Its head sank below the waves. Its golden light dimmed until it was just a faint glow beneath the water. It was returning to sleep, but not to the deep slumber it had known before. This time, it remained visible. This time, it stayed close to the surface, a reminder, a warning, a promise. Elena watched until only the Guardian's shoulders rose above the water like a new island chain. She felt the connection between them fading, but not disappearing. The Guardian would sleep, but it would always be watching. It would always be ready. "Thank you," she whispered across the fading link. The Guardian's response came as a feeling rather than words: warmth, pride, hope. It believed in humanity. It had protected them not because they were weak, but because they had the potential to become strong. One day, they would not need protection. One day, they would protect others. That was what the Guardian was waiting for. Round the galaxy, the aftermath began. The Dominion High Council met in emergency session and discovered that their authority meant nothing. Rebel species, emboldened by the Dominion's defeat, rose up across 1,000 worlds. The empire that had stood for 11 million years began to crumble. And at the center of it all was Earth, a small blue world that suddenly mattered more than any other place in the galaxy. Every species wanted to know about the humans. Every species wanted to understand why the Guardian had chosen them. The answers would change everything. 6 months had passed since the Guardian awakened. 6 months since the galaxy changed forever. Elena Vasquez stood at a window in the newly built United Earth Embassy, looking out at a sight that still amazed her. Ships from 100 different worlds filled the sky above Geneva. Some were elegant curves of silver light. Some were massive blocks of dark metal. Some were shapes that human eyes could barely understand. Each one carried representatives from species that wanted to meet humanity, to understand them, to be their friends. The Dominion had shattered like glass dropped on stone. Without their military might, their authority meant nothing. Species they had conquered for millions of years suddenly remembered their anger. Rebellions exploded across the galaxy. The High Council fled their home world, and no one knew where they went. No one cared. New alliances formed. New friendships began. And at the center of everything was Earth, the small world that the galaxy now called the protected place. Elena had become Earth's first ambassador to the stars. She had not wanted the job. She was a scientist, not a politician. But the Guardian had spoken her name to the galaxy, and that made her special in ways she still did not fully understand. Species came to Earth asking for her specifically. They believed she had some connection to the ancient beings sleeping in the Pacific Ocean. Maybe she did. Sometimes, late at night, she felt a presence at the edge of her mind, warm and patient and vast, watching over her, watching over all of them. Today was the most important day in human history. The first meeting of the reformed Galactic Council was about to begin, and humanity had been invited to speak. Representatives from 3,000 species had gathered to hear what the humans had to say. Elena felt the weight of 7 billion lives on her shoulders. Every human on Earth was watching this moment. Their words would shape how the galaxy saw them for generations to come. She walked into the Great Council chamber. It was a massive space, built in orbit above Earth. filled with beings of every shape and size imaginable. Some looked almost human. Some were covered in scales or feathers or things she had no names for. Some did not have physical bodies at all and appeared only as patterns of light. All of them turned to look at her as she approached the central speaking platform. Elena took a deep breath. She thought about the Guardian sleeping beneath the Pacific waves. She thought about the ancient beings who had created it, who had loved life so much that they built protectors to watch over young species. Across the universe, she thought about what humanity could become if they followed that example. Then she began to speak. Thank you all for coming. I know many of you have traveled far to be here. I know many of you have questions about humanity, about our world, about the Guardian that protects us. I will try to answer those questions, but first, I want to tell you a story. The chamber fell silent. 3,000 species listened. 6 months ago, we thought we were alone. We looked up at the stars and wondered if anyone else was out there. We dreamed of meeting other life forms, of learning that the universe was full of wonders we had never imagined. But we also feared what we might find. We feared that the universe might be cruel, that other species might see us as prey or slaves or resources to be used. Elena paused. She remembered the terror of those first days, when the Dominion fleet appeared and humanity faced extinction. Then the Guardian rose, and everything we thought we knew was wrong. She pressed a button, and images appeared around the chamber. Images of the Guardian emerging from the ice. Images of it walking across the ocean. Images of the ancient being settling into its new resting place, visible to all. A constant reminder of its presence. We did not build the Guardian. We did not earn its protection. For millions of years, we did not even know it existed. But it was there. It was always there, watching over us, waiting for the day we would need it. Some species in the audience shifted uncomfortably. They were thinking about their own worlds, wondering if they too had unknown protectors. The Guardian told us something when it awakened. It said we were young. It said we made mistakes. It said we were imperfect. All of these things are true. Humanity has done terrible things to each other over our history. We have fought wars. We have destroyed our own environment. We have hated each other for foolish reasons. Elena looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of as many beings as she could. But the Guardian also said something else. It said we had potential. It said we would grow. It said we would become something magnificent. And I believe it. I have to believe it. Because if something so ancient, so wise, so powerful believes in us, then maybe we should believe in ourselves. She stepped forward, her voice growing stronger. I am not here to ask for protection. The Guardian has already given us that. I am not here to ask for technology or resources or power. Those things we will earn on our own. I am here to ask for something else. The chamber waited. I am here to ask for patience. Humanity is new to the galaxy. We have so much to learn. We will make mistakes. We will stumble. We will sometimes disappoint you. But we will keep trying. We will keep growing. And one day, I promise you, we will become the species the Guardian believes we can be. Elena raised her head high. The Guardian was created by beings who loved life. They loved it so much that they built protectors to watch over young species across the universe. They wanted to give those species a chance to grow, to learn, to become something wonderful. We have been given that chance. We do not intend to waste it. She looked up, as if she could see through the station walls to Earth below, and the vast golden figure, sleeping beneath the Pacific waves. Someday, we will not need protection. Someday, we will be strong enough to stand on our own. And when that day comes, we will remember what the Guardian taught us. We will remember that true strength is the power to protect, not the power to destroy. We will remember that mercy is greater than cruelty, that hope is stronger than fear, that love is more powerful than hate. Elena smiled, and in that smile was the hope of an entire species. Someday, we will become the Guardians. We will protect the young species who come after us, just as we were protected. We will pass on the gift that was given to us, and the universe will be a little bit better because humanity existed. She stepped back from the platform. Thank you for listening. We look forward to growing alongside you. The chamber erupted in sound. Species cheered and clicked and made noises that humans had never heard before. It was not the response Elena had expected. She had thought they might be skeptical or hostile or dismissive, but instead, they were welcoming humanity to the galactic community. In his private quarters far across the galaxy, former Admiral Voroth watched the broadcast. He had lost everything. His rank, his fleet, his purpose. He was nothing now. But as he listened to the human woman speak, he felt something strange. Hope. Maybe the universe could change. Maybe the old ways of conquest and destruction were not the only ways. Maybe this young species, protected by their ancient guardian, would show the galaxy a different path. Maybe it was not too late for anyone. In the Pacific Ocean, deep beneath the waves, the Guardian slept and dreamed. It dreamed of its creators, the wise beings who had seeded the universe with life and hope. It dreamed of the other wardens, scattered across 1 trillion worlds, watching over 1 trillion young species. And it dreamed of the future. A future where humanity had grown beyond its protection. A future where the small, imperfect beings it had guarded for so long had become something magnificent. A future where they did not need a guardian because they had become guardians themselves. The guardian smiled in its sleep, and beneath the Pacific waters, a golden light pulsed once. Warm and proud. It was only a matter of time, and the guardian had all the time in the universe.